Welcome, everybody, to your Badass Journey podcast. Today, I have Hannah and Cecilia from Twisting the Plot. And I love these ladies, and I can't wait to introduce to you what they're doing. So welcome, ladies. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kareen.
Thanks for having us.
This is going to be a blast because, and I'm not sure which one of you wants to take the first stab at answering this question, but I would love for you to explain what Twisting the Plot is all about.
You want me to start, Hannah?
Go ahead.
All right. Twisting the Plot. Well, Twisting the Plot is, we came up with our creative title, Twisting the Plot, because it's for women over 50 who have either had their plots twisted, because a lot of women over 50 have their plots twisted unexpectedly, and want to twist their plots, make change in their lives. And how Hannah and I got started with this is that we were both in our 50s, and we were realizing that we didn't really know what we were supposed to be doing next. You know, I mean, we were sort of stuck. We were thinking, well, geez, you know, there's no maps out there. Like, what are we supposed to do now? Are we supposed to move towards retirement? Are we felt invisible. I called Hannah, panicked one day saying, I caught my reflection in a store window. And Hannah, I've turned into a dumpling. Where have I gone?
Right. A dumpling. I love it.
She said maybe I was just hungry.
Yeah.
But and so we started talking to other women our age. We started gathering women, actually. We did a couple dinners, and we asked people, and we kept getting the same answers from people. Like, I don't know what to do. Hannah, go on.
The question kept coming up, is this it?
Yeah.
Am I just now supposed to just sit here and kind of wait and fade? And we were like, I don't want to do that. And neither did the people we were talking to.
Yeah, it's really interesting that, we get this really hard push in our high school years, let's say. I'm going to go back a little bit, where it's like, what do you want to be? What kind of school do you want to go to? How are you going to make it happen, right? And then you have your 20s where it's like, push, figure it out, based on if you got a degree, if you didn't get a degree, do you want to go into certain skills, jobs, and establish yourself so that you're credible in whatever market you're in. 30s and then your 40s are all about that fine-tuning, mastery, growth spurts, like making sure that like what you've learned, put out there. I would say for me, and I'm definitely on the cusp of always overachieving, like in the realm of self-discovery and what else, right? Like that's what I help people do, is like up level to the next level. But when I hit my 40s, I was like, okay, what is the impact I want to have? What's the level of contribution? And then I could totally see as I enter towards my 50s, even that same questioning of what's next. So tell me a little bit about your background so folks understand why the work you're doing is so relevant, and also the method of which you do it in makes sense to the audience you're trying to attract, which is women over 50.
Mm-hmm. Well, our background, to go way back, Cecilia and I have been friends for over 40 years. Mm-hmm. We met in college, auditioning for a musical theater class together. Uh-huh. We got in.
Nice.
Barely, but we got in. And so that's how we know each other. So it was a natural fit that we would evolve. We've evolved together over the years. We've walked through everything together. Mm-hmm. So we have a great bond in that sense. But what we also hold is that we both have an artistic background in creative arts, and Celia's also a drama therapist, and we also have a clinical background. So I'm a psychotherapist, Celia's a psychologist, and so we bring this kind of nice mix of science and art to the idea of helping women see what's ahead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's and one of the things that we started to get interested in was this idea of longevity, that women, that here we are 50, I'm 60, and I don't feel done. I really don't. And, I plan to be around past 100. So, we started to think about that. And actually, at first, to be fair, Hannah and I saw it as a public health crisis at first, right? We were very serious. We would give talks about like no maps and women, the suicide rate for women over 50 is really, really high. I mean, it is still. It's the fastest growing suicidal population, actually, and drug addiction. And so we were going around and talking the sort of woe is me story, right, Hannah? And, I mean, people were listening to us. But one day, Hannah and I were just sort of sitting, and I think I was doing again, like, there's nothing. It's where ageism is just horrible and there's no openings and we live in a youth-centered culture. And Hannah kind of looked at me and smiled and said, hey, maybe this is a good thing, and she said, maybe we could make it up. And so since then, we've both become certified in positive psychology, and our whole methodology, our whole way that we want to help women discover who they could be and uncover their purpose and imagine new possibilities. We take a more positive bent on it. We say, it's an act of art. Actually,
right.
You're a work of art, and let us show you how to, really become. So we've sort of been having a lot more fun with it now, right, Hannah?
Definitely more fun. But longevity is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's really what we want to see is how to give that, how to make that possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
What the visualization I had as you were talking is kind of like a peacock with all its feathers, and how each feather, each bloom has its own uniqueness to it, and there's so many,
if only women over 50 could feel like a peacock. Can you imagine?
But why not?
The inclination is to sort of pull back, get smaller, right?
Right.
And geez, I love this image.
So then if you're thinking of the peacock with, when it's not in its most aggressive state, because that's actually when the feathers kind of show. But there's this beauty even in the small ones that you get to see. I think we forget, because if you're relying on society to tell you your value, you can definitely feel very small.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And at any age, the lessons you teach and the methods at which you're assisting people to be creative in the thinking of what do they want to display in this world? Like, how do they want to show up now?
Who do you want to be?
Yeah. It actually is effective at all ages. But I love that you're focusing on a niche that you yourselves are going through, so you can actually walk alongside these women and create the space.
We're having to work on ourselves here. It's amazing.
Yeah.
How much we buy into the cultural construct of, you're too old to start a business, or, to learn technology, or to make money, whatever, we're having to really catch ourselves. And, we're for women of all ages.
Right.
It's just, it seems the invitations start to dry up after 50. So that's why we're specifically saying, like, you're invited, it's
beautiful.
A lot of women in their 40s are saying to us, no, do it for us. We need it.
Right.
But, there's something nice about kind of claiming our tribe, and
it's warranted too, because you don't want to overextend yourself either into realms that spread yourself too thin, because then you miss out on giving to those who really need it in that focus that you have, which I love.
We're also creating a model for for the younger generation.
That's right. Yeah, tribe has been a very interesting theme for me this year. When I went to my first all women's event earlier this year in March, and it really showed me that I don't have to be in it alone. I personally have been in a very male dominated career path, and I've been able to build and support a lot of women in the male dominated environments. Yeah. So it's very rewarding for me to do that type of work too. But I think, looking at how you actually build tribe and think about that I'm going to use the word niche. It's not necessarily niche. It's just a generational growth, right? Like that you are servicing. What are the some of the pains, I guess, that some of the folks that you have helped, or even yourselves, your own journeys that you've gone through to really spark this interest of assisting and serving in this realm?
Well, I think, by pains, do you mean in terms of what the experiences they've had, or the pains that we've gone through?
Either one. I mean, this is all about your badass journey. So if you want to share yours, that would be great.
It's been challenging for us, as we said, because of that. Our own thought process and our own cultural acculturation that says, that we shouldn't be moving forward. That it's time to slow down. So we've had to do as Seal said, our own work to see that we can have possibility. What we find is, the reality of being over 50 is facing, as we say, plot twists that happen to you that may not be of your own choice, as well as the ones you choose. We have a lot of women who've, partners have left them or husbands have left them. Or
amazingly,
jobs.
a lot of women. 30-year marriages are suddenly
ending.
Or careers that are phasing them out because they're too old, or seen as too old. Lots of loss, lots of challenges.
Partners dying, parents passing, siblings passing, children moving out.
Yeah, and it's very hard because I think also the social structure, people lose their community, like you say, your tribe. They lose that support system that they've had in place, whether it is through their children and their community or whether it's through a job. And they're lonely, they're isolated, which makes them feel, more vulnerable to all of the thoughts that we have. So it's really an opportunity to bring women together, to support each other, and to see that we are still vital, that we have, I think, an untapped resource, that can make enormous change.
And Kareen, I don't know what you discover, but so many women, like Hannah and I've been thinking lately, it's really all about identity, right? It's really all about who are you now? Who are you? Then comes what do you want to do? Right. But women, and maybe it's more our generation, but women aren't taught to put a lot of thought into that somehow. Who a lot of the women how they identify themselves is who they're linked to, who they're either their husbands or their families or their careers or their, and so when these things start to shift, then they say to us, well, I don't know who I am now. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to dress. I don't know how to talk. I don't know who to be, and my physicality has changed. And so a lot of women identify themselves in terms of how they look, how they attract people, their style, and all of it can be reinvented, truly, but just needing sort of, I think, permission.
Yes.
And then support from other women. And then, we have a few, steps like here, start with this. Let's start, start with the imagination. Let's think about your mindset. Let's help you figure out what a new purpose could be. Mm-hmm. And
I definitely see that when folks are so tightly wound in associating their identity with a role that they play versus the truth of who they want to be in every moment. Right. Like there's this, it happens even just in the job market at any age when you have a certain role and you go through a layoff process, for example, right? And so many people now, it's like a common talent management effort these days to manage finances is that people go through layoff rounds. And every year there are large companies doing this. And here you have this person who has gone through, dedicated their life, their time, their energy to trying to grow within a company. And then all of a sudden it's just pulled out from under them. And now they don't know who to be. or how do I be, or how do I show up? I mean, and it's really difficult when there's an emotional attachment. So some of the pains you talked about, which is, whether it's divorce or empty nesting or loss of a family member, identity comes from, especially in a tribal standpoint, the role you play in that tribe. So now when your tribe identity shifts, or the role you play in that, in that, circle, let's just call it, then it requires the next version of you is the language I tend to use with my clients, where it's like, okay, you've mastered this existing version. Now that system, I always go back to systems because my background's in tech, and it translates well now that we all hold smartphones or, have upgrades going on all the time. It's the same thing with your life,
Well, I'm always afraid to upgrade because I'm right?
Like, well, but that's because it's not as familiar. Whereas if you talk to generations, coming after you, it's like, that's a very common thing. It's about version control. What's the next version? I can stay.
I like that. What's
this version? Yeah. I can say this version of myself, this, Kareen 2018 version for the rest of my life if I choose to, but does that fill me up? Am I optimized? Am I getting the best benefits? Am I getting utilized as much? It's the same type of occurrence that happens with these big life changes. It's like, okay, the version of me is not capable yet. I don't have the right software install yet to handle all this drama coming my way. And this crazy change.
And the next version for a lot of the women that we work over 50, again, it's if you're looking for the prototype, it's not out there, right? So we have to teach people how to step out of the box, actually, to like really believe in the science of possibilities, to like be an outlier, right? To step out
and dream again.
And dream again, and dream again. Yes.
Yeah. Because
honestly,
that's the hardest part, I think. It's also when you fit into a box for so long.
Right. Like, but I think ageism also just sort of narrows it. It's almost like you're not supposed to dream. You're supposed to be getting your affairs in order, one woman told us, right? Yeah, right? Or I don't know what. Or
I can see that. But that's what they're told. Or, you start to believe it until you try something else.
I remember with my mother, who was my father's support, and he said to me actually once, he said, well, she doesn't have any interests. And after he, when he was heading retirement, I looked at him, I said, her entire life was about making your life possible. Give her time. It was interesting, but that's what a lot of our role models were too, is that, and particularly in our generation, was we were a
service
system, we're a service. And so how do you imagine what that is?
And I think, quite frankly, being of service is a thing that women want to do, and but how you do it and who you are when you do it is where we want to get, right? So it comes from the energy inside, from the desire inside.
Yeah, and I love that I know you offer workshops and programs and, work directly with folks who are managing through the twist, right? Like trying to figure out as they are swirling around what the outcome is going to be.
I like that too.
Which is really great because you're giving permission to design again. So tell me a little bit about how you two came together. Obviously, you've known each other for so long, but when did you decide to build a partnership in this and kind of now start to offer these services to your clients?
I mean, it really was an evolution of over time. It started with conversation, and as we said, complaining, and until it evolved into something that we realized we had something to offer, because we both come from a therapeutic background, and an education background, that we realized that there was an opportunity for us to share what we were finding and what we were learning with people, and to put it into a way in which was useful and could help women have an opportunity to try out those skills to learn how step by step sort of how to change how they think about themselves, how to discover who they want to be and listen to themselves in a new way and start to create that community and support and goals that would make that a reality.
Yeah. I think we both our special sauce for Hannah and I is always be able to gather a group of women and have great conversations and laugh and make everybody feel comfortable. And we were doing it as therapists. We were doing it as friends, with our large groups of friends. And I just think we both and then the questions, about what's happening to us here, so
it was interesting. The first workshop kind of event we did, at the end of it, people lined up. So how do you guys know each other? How long have you been friends? It was really interesting to us because we hadn't even fathomed that would be interesting to anyone. But that was a big question. So
yeah, it's a rare occurrence to have lifelong friends, especially when life takes its course, right? Like whether it's your kids and what's going on with your kids, and then there's the association of all the parenting stuff that happens and that tribe that's built. But I am very fortunate that I have those close girlfriends it's crazy, like from kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
And I'm very fortunate that all of them that I still, sustain the relationship want to also continue that relationship. Because I think there's that aspect of it too. And it's much easier for us now too with the digital age where we can text and FaceTime and do all these great things. But when we get together and have those conversations and really check in and connect, it is beautiful. And the fact that you're creating that space for women who might feel isolated and also feel less than because they're disconnected from their identity. It is really important to know that there are places they can go to learn how to reconnect and flex those muscles again. Mm-hmm. One of the things you said was we can easily get caught up in the story in our head. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's that invitation to say, hey, what's going on in your head? I actually care. I want to know. And the fact that you have these workshops, dinners, however you bring folks together, it's beautiful.
Well, we do. We've done dinners. We're offering workshops. We have sort of we were calling it the core program. I think we're going to call it an intensive now, but we start with mindset, right? You've got to really look at those fixed mindsets, right? That voice in your head that says it's too late or I can't now or I'll look foolish or whatever it is. So we really work on that. We work on imagination, and what we realized is we actually went to a talk recently with a lot of women were there over 50 and a lot of people were saying we have to use our imaginations. But women look at us and say, I don't know what you mean. I don't know how to use my imagination. So then we realize, okay, we've got to actually teach people how to make things up, how to play again.
Yeah.
We do a life review workshop where we have people look back at their stories of their life, not like you do in psychotherapy to figure out where it went wrong, but to look at who are you? What do you want to bring? What do you want to bring with you? And how might you want to twist that? Right? Your own story is your own story, Exactly. So, what else? We have a repurposing workshop where we call it repurposing because it's something, purpose isn't one thing that comes to you from above and you're saddled with forever.
We also we do a strengths workshop because we think it's really important to know and understand your strengths if you're going to use them and focus them in a way that, is fulfilling. So
I love it.
Because most women are real good at telling us what their weaknesses are.
Right. It's very easy. Yeah. To weigh on the negative generally is easy because that's what we're trained to do. Yeah. And so
as therapists too.
Yeah, of course.
We're trained to look at the weaknesses, to diagnose, to pathologize essentially,
Yeah.
So Hannah and I had both wanted to move out of that a little bit. Right. So focus more on be more strengths-based change agents. So, yeah.
That's great. It's like fitness trainers flexing the muscles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we work with what you got and you make it stronger. I love that because that has impact going forward too. I'm curious if each of you have a story in your own personal life where you felt like, man, that was a badass moment. Something that you just totally overcame or plowed through or achieved that you would love to share with our listeners.
Mm-hmm. Let me think. My badass moment. This was on the prep form that we didn't do, right? Yeah. I would have to say I'm feeling really badass about getting our literary agent, first of all. And I've been, writing a lot. That's felt really, really great. But what would I call my badass moment? I mean, I'm trying to think how personal to get here. Like both Hannah and I have a lot going on in our lives, similar to our women. I have a child with special needs and lots of things going on family wise. And, that now that I have my new badass attitude, I don't see it as a burden. I don't see, my process is working to not see it as a burden, to see everything as a chance to get bigger, to get to really, what I've been saying lately to Hannah, like, I really want to be my grown-up girl now, like in a way I've never been before, so I'm really want to step into responsibility.
Right. It's interesting thinking about it as a badass moment because there's so many little badass
Hannah,
moments.
You've had many.
You're badass. It can be as simple as conquering the technical stuff to record the podcast. That's a badass moment. I know that I'm in control. That feels good. To being able to speak about what we're doing, and every time we reach another milestone that we've set for ourselves, it's a badass moment. We've got a literary agent. That's a badass moment. There's a lot of them that have been about along the way.
Hannah just had their knee replacement. That's a badass moment.
It is a badass moment.
She was badass about that too.
All right, so if we're going to go down that road, my other badass moment was giving a dinner party for our college friends 12 days after my hip replacement.
That was a badass.
That's a badass moment.
Yes.
Well, the reason why I love asking that question is that most women, especially, obviously the podcast is your badass journey because I believe that everyone is a badass in their own right. Showing up and putting yourself out there and going after what you want and even fumbling has the badass in them, and so I love that the way you just dialogued on answering that question with me, because both of you had I could see the training you're both going through and trying to reframe onto the positive, because there was a struggle in that a little bit. But I love how quickly you answered it, both of you, and showing up,
Well, the badass is not about doing, as you said, accomplishing everything perfectly. It's about falling over, dusting yourself off and getting back up and saying, here I go again. That's it.
Yeah, that is right. And I love that definition of it too. And it's why I love asking the question, because you get to see pride a little bit in just the showing up, which is really cool. Yeah. Well, so tell folks, what is the best way to connect with you? Do you have any, workshops going on that you want them to look at, join into the new year? What's going on with that?
You want me to tell Cia? We're about to launch a new website, which we're really excited about. It's a lot more interactive, which is what we've been hoping for. So that will launch after the first of the year. And if people check out twistingtheplot.com, they will see that we have a lot of ways to connect with people. One is that you can sign up and you'll get a newsletter from us that'll be with things you can do and inspiration on a regular basis. We have some free information to get people started and get excited about the idea of twisting their own plot. We will have some writing and eventually the podcast so blogs and articles and things like that will be there. And then there'll be a new schedule for workshops heading into
the new year. That's great.
Yes, there'll be workshops and events. And and also there's an opportunity on the website. We want to hear from women. So we have a submit your story. We want to get the stories and start sharing, because what we see, this twisting the plot, while we want each woman to find her own showing up, her own voice, her own badass self individually, it's really a cultural movement. And if we don't, women, like it has to be collaborative, it has to be collective. And that's how change really happens. That's how we're going to find a whole new stage for women, a whole new, like, I want women forming armies. I want to get out there. I want to change the world. Like, hey, if we make it through menopause, let's make it worth it. Right? Yeah. Let's not just peter out after we go through all of that. Come on.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love the energy you two bring. And I want to thank you both for really showing up in your own journey to include others in healing their paths as well, but really just like creating that design of what it looks like for the next years to come. I mean, it's a beautiful gift and environment you're able to provide and share. And so I want to thank you both so much for sharing a piece of yourselves, because I know there's so much more to come, as well as so much that you've gone through that we can't wait to see through the community you're creating on your new website and all that you're going to be putting out there in 2019. So thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you both.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this was fun.